Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes in public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. The show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness Initiative. This episode is sponsored by the Finest Service Organization, a provider of line-of-duty death loan protection through many of our POCUA institutions. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Public Safety Talk Radio, and yes, I have another great guest. This is going to be a really interesting one, because not that we always have a first responder, it seems like. We've got another great one in Austin Glickman, but he's also an entrepreneur, which came up with a great idea called the Leo Weekend, and we're going to dig into that. But let me tell you a little bit about Austin. He's been involved with the emergency services field since 2008 when he joined the City of Long Beach Volunteer Fire Department. So he's been on both sides, fire and police officer. He was a bright-eyed 18-year-old. So now we know how old he is if he was 18 in 2008. Austin quickly realized his passion for helping others and went on to continue his volunteer service as an EMT for the State University of Portland, his alma mater. Let's fast forward a little bit to the fact that he is now an active police officer. He raised his hand with over 1,000 other individuals as they were sworn into the New York City Police Academy. However, within just a few weeks of starting his police career, the world would forever change following national news stories which fueled protests and riots throughout the country, which is highly unfortunate. But it was around that time, I believe, he came up with the idea of Leo Weekend. I can go on and on about Austin, but Austin, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for being here. I know we went back and forth on the email, and you had to reschedule a couple of times, but as I told you via the email, you're active duty. I will let that go. If you're a civilian like me, hey, make appointments, but when you're active duty, you got better things to do than to talk to me.
I almost didn't make it tonight. As I was leaving, a lot of the guys in the office were getting notified for a detail tonight in Times Square. I believe it was for a protest against the ongoing war with Russia and Ukraine. So yeah, I made it out by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're here, and we of course, our hearts are with the folks in Ukraine, and certainly wish this wasn't happening. But let's segue back to the subject at hand, which is Leo Weekend. I understand the idea came to you very early in your career. Why and how did it come to you?
So as you read in the bio, right after I got into the academy, within probably a few weeks, the world turned upside down, as I like to reference it as. Yeah. Law enforcement went from being the good guys to the bad guys in the snap of a finger. It happened so quick. And why did it happen? There were false narratives being portrayed on the news media in relations to high-profile incidents that occurred throughout the country. One, of course, happened here in New York City. A few happened in Baltimore, and then, of course, Ferguson, which was the one that really took the spotlight. The hands up, don't shoot, and then Black Lives Matter started to really unfold, and we went from being this noble profession to now being viewed as the enemy. And I only had maybe a month or two in the academy, and I was like, what did I get myself involved in? Nobody could have predicted for that to happen. We didn't think it could get any worse, and were we wrong? We could get into that in a little bit, but as all this started to unfold in front of me, my classmates, my instructors, a lot of the other law enforcement officers that I was dealing with on a daily basis, their stress levels were through the roof. So one night, as I came home from the range, actually, I went online, and this idea came into my head to try to find an organization or an event that allowed law enforcement officers, their friends, their families to just get away for the weekend, relax, unwind, partake in different activities. Now, of course, we all know there's the National Police Week that occurs in DC every year, which is an unbelievable.
At least it did before COVID. I think it hasn't happened in a couple of years.
It's coming back this year. Awesome. Our organization is in direct connection with the FOP down in DC, and we got the thumbs up. It is definitely happening this year, and they're going to be opening up registration soon for all you vendors out there for Tent City, which is always a big to do. But Police Week is not the type of events and activities that I was imagining in my own mind.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find out that I couldn't find a single other event or activity out there that allowed for officers to get away for the weekend. Now, there are other ones out there that are very small or intricate and specific to a little area of the country or department. Some of them are private or they're funded through other means. But again, nothing that I was really thinking in my mind. So this idea started to formulate in my head. And as luck would have it, right after I graduated the academy, let me backtrack a few moments. Before I graduated the academy, officers Lou and Ramos in the NYPD were assassinated in Brooklyn. Going to be polite here, we'll call him a man, came from Baltimore and put on his social media page that he was going to put wings on pigs. And he showed up and found the first 2 police officers that he could find. Unfortunately, it was officers Lou and Ramos. Now they're promoted to detective after their death. So detectives Lou and Ramos were sitting in their patrol car eating lunch, and he came up to their passenger side window and just started putting rounds through the window. And unfortunately, they were both killed instantly. After that had occurred, I then graduated within about 2 weeks after that. It was one of the first and only graduating classes inside Madison Square Garden, where we didn't throw up our white gloves. There was no confetti. We did a final salute to Lou Ramos on the Jumbotron, and we somberly walked out of Madison Square Garden. So what's supposed to be one of the most proudest, happiest moments of your life, graduating the most prestigious police department academy in the world, was the exact opposite. And it left our families who were there, thousands and thousands of people are watching us walk across that stage. And now you leave and they go, wow, what's going to happen to my loved one?
Yeah.
If these 2 police officers who have years and years on the job, my son or daughter, they're leaving the Madison Square Garden with 2 minutes on the job. So what's going to happen to them if they're not prepared? So it was a really interesting time to graduate. But as luck would have it, right after I graduated, I had a few days off before I had to go to work. And I went up to Lake George, New York. My then girlfriend at the time took me up there to see the area. I had never been there before. And she introduced me to a family friend. Essentially, it's almost like her uncle. They've known each other for forever. And his name was Bob Blaze. He is the mayor of Lake George. He's been the mayor of Lake George for, I think, over 50 years. He's, I think, in the top 2 longest running mayors in U.S. history.
Wow.
And he's a prior police chief for the village of Lake George. And I joke with him. I say, Bob was the chief of police when the horses pulled the police carriages. And the Lake George Police Department actually got disbanded many, many years ago and got taken over by the county sheriff's department. But nonetheless, Bob was a retired police chief. And as I was up there, again, as luck would have it, there was a massive firefighter convention going on called the Hudson Valley Firefighters Convention. And I saw fire trucks from all across New York State in Lake George. So I said to Bob, have you ever thought about doing a police convention? And he said, no one's ever really, came up with
No one ever asked.
No one ever asked. No one ever approached us. And we got the ball rolling. And for 2 years, we were going back and forth, emailing each other. I would go to meetings with him, and then we got other local police chiefs involved, and it just kind of snowballed into what it is now. And we were blessed to get a $25,000 grant, and Mayor Blaze used his own pocket money, gave us $10,000 to get this event up and running, and just a lot of support and appreciation from the locals in the area. Again, my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, her family got fully involved.
I was going to ask you that. It's like, is your girlfriend now your wife, or did you unload her and find somebody else? But you're still going to Lake George.
I got rid of her. I used her for what I needed, and then I got
you unloaded her. I'm glad you stayed together.
Yep, stayed together. We've been married now for 3 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And she's a huge supporter of course, of law enforcement and everything that I do. I wouldn't be able to do it without her, actually, because all she has to do is tell me no, and then that's it.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So everything just fell into place. I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason. I think I was there on that day with Bob and the firefighters. And it just, because if none of that had happened, none of this would have occurred. And in 2017, so that was back in 2014. Well, excuse me, 2014 was when I was in the academy. This is now 2016. 2017, we actually launched our first event in Lake George, Law Enforcement Officers Weekend in Lake George. And we had 98 attendees, which at the time I didn't think it was a great turnout, but it was a turnout nonetheless. And it was expensive, but the feedback that we got was unbelievable. But I'm leaving out a huge detail about Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. So what is Law Enforcement Officers Weekend? We are a two-pronged organization. First and foremost, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we do is we raise money over the years, and we bring the families of injured and fallen law enforcement officers to these events 100% paid for. So we pay for their flights, we pay for the hotels, we pay for all the food, we give them spending money throughout the weekend, and anything else that you can think of, we take care of it. It is the full VIP treatment for these families. Yeah. So that's prong number one.
Now a word from one of the POCUA's proud business partners, OfficerPrivacy.com. OfficerPrivacy.com was founded by Pete James, a law enforcement professional with over 25 years of experience. Pete wanted to find a way to help law enforcement officers protect themselves and their families. So he formed a team to create a way to quickly identify and remove their information from certain sites. OfficerPrivacy.com is the result. This service is already offered through a select few of our POCUA organizations. As a listener of Public Safety Talk Radio, you can take advantage of a special offer from OfficerPrivacy.com. Go to OfficerPrivacy.com/POCUA, and when you sign up, you'll get 2 additional bonuses. In addition to removing your personal information from the top 30 people search sites, they will give you your first 2 months of monitoring free. This is a value of $39.98. In addition to that, you'll receive a cell phone privacy device, a $19.99 value. This prevents data from leaving your cell phone when you use public charging stations and is a must when traveling. So go to officerprivacy.com/POCUA today to take advantage of this offer and to protect your privacy. Organizations who are members of the POCUA and are interested in offering the service directly to their members, contact us at POCUA@btcinc.org.
Number 2 is we then open these events to the general public. And when I say general public, what I really mean, active law enforcement officers, their friends, their families to come and join us. And again, it's not just police. People always say the police, but it's not just police. Law enforcement is a huge spectrum.
Sure.
Right? So of course you have the police, you have your local sheriff's departments, you have deputy sheriffs, corrections, parole, probation. Technically, you could even, say that the district attorney's office is law enforcement. So we don't discriminate who comes, who doesn't come. If you hold the law enforcement title, you're more than welcome to come, whether you're active or retired, or even if you're just a supporter, you're welcome to come. We get discounts for all the hotels in the area. And at these weekends, we have fireworks shows, we have canine demonstrations, we do vintage police car displays, comedy shows, concerts, fishing charters, surf lessons, jet skiing, you name it, we do it throughout the weekend. And it is super cheap. All the hotels we work with, all the vendors that we work with, they give it to us at bare minimum prices, and it's still very expensive.
So I could go.
You could go. Anyone can go.
I got the shirt on, so I could go.
You can go. You can go. You could do the podcast.
I could. I very well could. That may very well be a date. But do you let firefighters in too, or it's kind of like there's no hoses here.
I'm glad you brought that up. So we actually have a few firefighters on our board of directors.
Good.
Kevin Bernstein, who's a member of the FDNY, Zach Grunther, who's a member of the Long Beach Fire Department. So we have plenty of firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and of course law enforcement officers who support this organization through and through. And we also help the firefighters. We've done things in the past for the FDNY and other local departments here if they have a member that needs assistance, or we help with fundraising. So essentially, we are a organization that deals with logistics and event planning. That's where we are at the base.
So with all this fun going on, surfing lessons and fishing charters and everything else, somebody breaks their leg or has a heart attack, you got EMTs there too. We're good. We got it. We got it covered.
We got everything covered. Everything covered. And we have, of course, we have insurance. So, people are probably saying, if they're listening to this and they know where Lake George is, they go, you can't surf in Lake George. No, you're right. It's because we have more than just our Lake George event. So since 2017, we've expanded tremendously. We now offer over 14 different events throughout the entire country, primarily still in the Northeast. But we have our Lake George event, which is, of course, our home away from home. We have a Long Beach, New York event, which is specific to officers who are injured in the line of duty. That's, of course, where the surfing comes in. Long Beach has some really great surf, especially late summer, early fall. And then we just had our first ever event outside of New York in Miami, Key Biscayne, Miami, where we had over 280 attendees come to the Ritz-Carlton, the classiest of class resorts in Miami. And we're talking rooms that are typically $800 to $1,000 a night just to get in the door. And that's with nothing included. The Ritz-Carlton last year gave us, our organization and all of our attendees, a deal for $199 a night. You're not going to get these deals anywhere else. And we're able to do it through our organization because of our mission. We're doing it for the families of the fallen, the families of the injured. And our motto is bringing your blood and blue families together. And that's exactly what we do. So we bring these families who are going through a really tough time, and we surround them with their blue family, and they just get a lot of love and support and appreciation. Plus they get to have an amazing, fun family vacation, and they get to leave the stress at home from these unfortunate incidents that have occurred.
Yeah. It sounds like it. I love what you're doing, and obviously a big shout out to the Ritz-Carlton for lowering their rates for your program, for your event. Not every hotel, not every organization is going to do that. So that makes me want to stay at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah, and this year, so we're going to be launching registrations soon. This year, of course, the prices did bump up. We knew that was going to happen, but even this year, with everything going on with inflation, it's only $249 a night. Again, you're not going to get these prices anywhere else.
Yeah.
So the Miami event, and we sold out last year in 48 hours. So if anyone is interested in coming, you have to make sure to follow us on social media, because the minute that we announce that we're opening up registration for the Ritz, it's going to sell out within 2 days, maybe even less now. We have over 5.5 million views on Facebook alone each month. So there's a lot of people watching our Facebook page. So follow us on social media. But those days are going to be October 7th to the 10th. It's Columbus Day weekend. So if anybody's interested in coming, lock in those dates. Or Lake George. Yeah. And our Lake George event is Father's Day weekend, June 17th to the 19th. And again, we have a lot of stuff going on. Lake George has a lot more hotels in the area. So I wouldn't be too worried about getting locked out, but it's still a possibility. And then our Long Beach event is going to be the last weekend in July. I believe it's the 28th through the 31st. And then, of course, we have so many other things going on. But just if you go to leoweekend.com, they can check out all the events and activities that we have up and coming for this year.
So you got a lot going on just this year in 2022. I counted, just 3 events that you reeled off there. When these folks, and I love what you're doing with injured and unfortunately families that have lost a loved one in the line of duty, when they go to these events, it certainly sounds fun. It sounds like it's very supportive. Is it just social, or are there other things there? Is there counseling? Is there any type of sessions or anything like that? Or is that just simply a way to get the weight off of your shoulders for a little while among people that understand?
Sure. So it's a great question. And if you think about it, the weekend itself is counseling.
Yeah.
It may not seem like it, but we have really, really stressful jobs, whether we want to admit it or not. And talking about mental health in the law enforcement community specifically is taboo. And it's been taboo for so long. And we've made great strides over the past few years. I know a lot of departments are really actively working with health professionals to try and fix their the way they operate as a department to dictate what happens after an incident, or with PTSD, with suicide awareness, or just giving cops just days off. It could be just as simple as just giving them an extra day off. So if you really think about it, the weekend itself is meant to be a relaxing weekend. It's meant to allow the attendees to de-stress and unwind and have fun and let loose. So that weekend in itself is a mechanism to fight mental health.
Yeah.
But yes, we do offer seminars throughout most weekends that focus on an array of different topics. We have everything from bomb disposal to something called trauma that we're going to be launching this year with New York LEAP, which is a partner organization of ours that focuses on mental health with law enforcement. And then we've had doctors come in the past. We've had different other types of clinicians who deal with mental health. And they're only about an hour to an hour and a half seminars. Again, when you're coming to Miami or you're coming to Lake George, you're not looking to stay in a classroom all day. But we offer them really early in the morning. It allows the attendees to come, and it's not just for the cops, or I should say for law enforcement. We allow the families to come as well, because how important is it for a spouse or a child to learn what their Leo is going through?
Mm-hmm.
And if mommy or daddy come home some nights and maybe they don't want to talk to you, maybe they just want to go in their room or
read your own story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it allows them to understand what we go through as law enforcement officers, because a lot of times we can't come home and talk about it. Because if I came home and talked to my wife about the things that I did that day, she would let me never go back to work. She would tell me I'd have to stay home, every single day. So, I think that pretty much answers the question.
Well, if you want to retire and just stay at home, maybe you want to let her in on that. But but I am really pleased because I've had a number of experts like yourself on this show that the mental health, the emotional portion of the job is on the radar now. I know every department is different. I think that some of the larger ones, it takes a little bit longer to steer that ship, but it's certainly on the radar. Just here, I live in Long Beach, but it's Long Beach, California, not Long Beach, New York. It's still Long Beach. But was literally on a community meeting last night with the chief of police and the local commander here in our division where I live in Long Beach. And they talked unsolicited. They talked about their vision for 2022 and mental wellness and health was a part of that vision from the chief for all of his officers. So it was good to hear that. I should have actually talked to you a couple days ago. I would have said, there's this guy, Austin, he does stuff in Long Beach. It might as well be Long Beach, California. Why don't you bring him on out here for a weekend? although it might be a little bit more expensive than $249 a night in California.
It might be, but you know what? Get me on the phone with the hotel and I guarantee I can talk them
down. I'll get you connected with the Hotel Maya in downtown Long Beach. They're great people, by the way. But so in these events, you've been doing them for a number of years. You now are doing them in Miami as well. Are the folks that come to your events primarily from New York and the East Coast, or are they coming from all over the country? Has the word gotten out?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely gotten out, and we continue to grow by leaps and bounds each and every month. It's been astonishing. In the beginning, yes, most of our attendees, especially because where Lake George is geographically located, it is not easy to get to for those of you, again, who know where it is. Mm-hmm. The closest airport is Albany, which of course is the state capital of New York. But Albany is a small airport. Doesn't have a lot of commuter planes coming in and out, and it's still a good 45 minutes to an hour away from where Lake George is. Lake George is very far north and closer to the Canadian border. Mm-hmm. I call it Canada as a joke, being from Long Island, being as far south as you could go in New York. I always, when I go up there, I say we're in Canada because it's close enough to me at least. So again, it's not easy to get to. But we still had a lot of attendees from Massachusetts, from New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, the entire Northeast. And then as we started to expand and as we started to really launch our social media campaigns, and word of mouth being probably one of the best advertising tools that we have, we started noticing more and more people following us on social media, more and more people starting to come to these events. And then, of course, once we launched Miami, and Miami being a main, hub with Fort Lauderdale and Miami International Airport, both within, 25 minutes of one another, we have officers from coast to coast who come with their families. And we even have some international officers now that are following our event, and they want to come down. And believe it or not, April 23rd, we're going to be working with the NYPD softball team. We're hosting an event in honor of Detective Rivera and Mora, who unfortunately were just killed a few weeks ago here in the city. We're hosting a softball tournament with 12 different teams throughout the country, throughout New York. But we also have the Royal Air Force coming from Great Britain to come and play an exhibition game against the NYPD, and we're helping set up this event. So technically, I guess you could say that this is going to be our first event with outside the country attendees coming to participate. And it's not just it's Royal Air Force and British Police. They have about 15 guys that are coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Leo Weekend coming to London soon.
Yeah. Well, we're always looking to expand. So the goal over the next 5 to 10 years, honestly, is to continue to expand into other parts of the country. We get emails and direct messages all the time on our social media platforms asking when we're going to do events in their area.
Sure.
We try to convince people, of course, to jump on the planes and fly to different locations. And that's why we really chose locations that are tourist attractions. Miami, New York City / Long Island, and then Lake George. But they're always saying, when are we going to come closer to them? And because, of course, it's a huge cost factor. We understand that. So with that being said, we're looking in the near future to have about 5 different events, major events, throughout the entire United States. So we're looking at Colorado as a potential next state that we want to move into. Most of our events right now occur during the nicer summer months or fall. We have nothing in the winter, so we would love to host snowboarding, skiing, tubing, hot cocoa, getaway somewhere in Colorado. So we're working with some of our partners out there. And then we're looking to potentially move into Texas after that, where we would move away from the major cities and kind of do maybe like a real Texan type of event where we got big T-bone steaks and we can shoot things and that type of thing.
You shoot your own steak,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, you get to choose your own steak out.
See that steer?
right, exactly. So, the sky's the limit when it comes to this organization. As long as we're able to continue to bring in sponsors and attendees and get the word out there, we'll do as much as we can for these families and for our attendees because it's needed. I say this. It's good and bad that we don't have competition. It's good in the sense that I'll be honest, it's easier for us to obtain sponsors when I'm not competing against another organization that does what we do. It's bad because we can only help so many families.
Yeah.
I wish there were more organizations out there that are able to do what we do, because then we could help a lot more. Last year alone, of course, COVID included, we had over 500 active law enforcement officers that were killed in the line of duty.
Yeah. Of
course, a lot of it was COVID related, but we still had, I believe it was 62 officers that were shot and killed, and then a significant amount of officers that were either intentionally struck by vehicles or killed in car accidents. They were stabbed, and we can only help so many. Since 2017, we've helped 42 families. We worked with 42 families, and we continue to add more. So by the end of this year, we'll probably be well over 60, but 60 in 6 years, you compare it to last year alone where we lost 500 officers. I mean, we're talking about, peanuts. So I wish there were more organizations out there that were able to help. And it seems like there are. There are organizations that are starting to come around. Every day it seems like there's new organizations that are popping up. And then there's organizations that have been in existence for a while that are now kind of moving into the realm of offering different events and activities. But again, we're really good at what we do. And the more sponsors that we get and the more followers that we have on social media, the more that we're able to help. So if you're a sponsor or a potential sponsor listening right now, please
call Austin.
we could use your assistance. We need your money.
And yeah, to your point, yeah, there are so many organizations that are doing so many great things, like Leo Weekend. But they're doing it regionally. They're doing what they can with the resources they have. And as a side note, that is one of the objectives of the POCOA, to keep bringing these organizations together so there could be partnering and collaborating, especially for those businesses that don't care who get the credit, who care about helping
Right.
first responders. Unfortunately, while that certainly is the case most of the time, unfortunately, sometimes you get those businesses that want the limelight and don't want to share. But
Yeah.
fortunately, that's few and far between. But a question, as I begin to wrap this up, I can hear the passion for what you're doing. I certainly heard the passion when before we pressed the record button for your job as a police officer, of course. But there's at least just as much passion for this. Is this your future, where you serve as a police officer for a while, and then eventually, you're just that entrepreneur that is running Leo Weekend full time throughout the country?
That's a question I ask myself every single day.
Do you ever answer it?
I fantasize in my head every single day about that. The question that I ask myself every day. The plan changes each and every day. It's not an easy answer. First and foremost, nobody in our organization, whether it's the volunteers or our board of directors, receives a paycheck. So we're all doing this 100% on our own time, on our own dime. For the most part, we even pay for our own hotel rooms. We pay for our own flights, because we want as much money to go into the organization as possible. Now, of course, are there times where we do use funding so we can go to these events and we can go to these meetings? Yes, sometimes we have to. We're not made of money. We're first responders. We don't make a lot of money. So we sometimes have to use funding to do that. But for the most part, we use that out of our own pocket. Have we discussed as a board in 5-10 years down the road, or if we're able to land major sponsorships where we transition away from being active responders and focusing more full-time on LEO Weekend? Of course, 100%. I get the question all the time, do I see myself as the president of this organization moving more into a full role with it? And of course, right now, I already am. This is, I feel like I work more on LEO Weekend than I do as an NYPD officer. It's nonstop. It never ends. But I would love to. And I people even come up to me and they ask me if I'm ever going to get into politics. And, it's, I think
don't do that. Just keep fantasizing every day. Don't go into politics.
Who knows? But the answer is yes. I would love to at some point, whether it's when I retire, which is not for another 12 to 14 years from now. Right. I only have 8 years on the job. In New York, we need 22 and a half to retire. So still got a long way to go. But if the opportunity ever presented itself, I think I'd jump all over it to do this full time. And oh man, what I would be able to do if I did do this full time, it would be unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to that. But for now, keeping everybody safe through the NYPD. All right. Don't quit your day job.
No, I won't be quitting anytime soon.
Well, I love what you're doing. I love the story behind it. I always love the entrepreneurial stories. And when they're entrepreneurial and related to public safety and our public safety professionals, it always gets me excited. Last question that I have for you, and I'm pretty sure you already mentioned it, but it bears repeating. How can folks out there find Leo Weekend if they're interested in participating in one of your events? Sure.
So the two easiest ways, first and foremost, social media. So if you look us up on Instagram, it's LEO_weekend. And then on Facebook, Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. Follow us, and we always are constantly posting. We're very, very active on social media. and you'll see all the upcoming events and activities, and you'll interact with our community. And then, of course, our website. So if they go to leoweekend.com, click on the link. We always have an updated list of what's going on. Again, if you want to come to an event, or if you're another nonprofit or an organization or a company that wants to get involved and work with us, we're always open to that. We never want to do anything alone. There's power in numbers. There's power in different organizations working with each other. So if you're listening, get in contact with us, and we'd love to work with you and bring an event to an area near you.
Perfect. Austin, thank you so much. Appreciate what you're doing, and really appreciate you taking some time out of what I know is a really busy day for you.
You know what? It's a pleasure. I love doing interviews. I love interacting and as you see, talking about my passion. So this is the pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, you made my job as an interviewer very easy, and I appreciate it, Austin. But thank you again, and thank you to all of you who have watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. Definitely go out there and check out leoweekend.com and go to one of these events if you can, and we'll be with you next week with another great guest. Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.